Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, back to the channel. We're going to break down my top 15 Dreamworks animated films. If you're new to the channel, my name is Max Sinnerberg on Max Talks Movies. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, ring the bell. I do these type of rankings, other movie reviews, TV show reviews, and a box office breakdown show every single Monday. So please subscribe, ring the bell if you're new to the channel. Also, please comment down below. Let me know your top 15 Dreamworks animated films. And also, please like the video, guys. The algorithm really helps. If people want to check out more Dreamworks stuff, please hit the like button so people can come join this awesome community. Also, I've already done my bottom 15 Dreamworks films. I've only seen 30 of the 42. 41, whatever it is. So I gave my bottom 15 video on Monday. And now I'm dropping part 2 of this series, which is the top 15 Dreamworks films. So I don't want to spoil what I put on. If you have not seen the other list, go back to that list, check out my bottom 15, and let's get started with the top 15. I'll try to go as quickly as possible. Let's get started. So number 15 for me, and again, this is a very subjective list. This is my bias. This is my list. This is not every list. That's why I want to hear your list in the comment section down below. I know there's a lot of films on my bottom 15. I think you guys would have maybe your top 5, top 10. Love to hear your thoughts. But this is how I feel personally. I grew up with Dreamworks. The studio came out just a year or two before, a couple of years before I was born. So I really grew up with basically all of these films. So I have a lot of nostalgia, especially for these ones towards the top. So let's get started. Number 15 is Rise of the Guardians. I find this to be one of the more underrated, just not talked about enough Dreamworks animated films. Now, I don't think this is top, again, as I said, it's number 15. This is not top tier Dreamworks, but I do think it's a really excellent film with a superb plot, a superb premise about, the villain played by Hugh Jackman, who's on the right, but you also have Chris Pine playing Jack Frost, teaming up with Santa, who's voiced by Alec Baldwin. You have Jude Law, you have Isla Fisher. Just a fun group of characters. I'm talking about the Easter Bunny, Santa, Jack Frost. And there is actually a lot of heart with the Jack Frost character being the main character, the fact that he's just never seen by anyone. And he's not really seen as these iconic Christmas-like characters or Catholic or Christian characters, just like Santa or, even the Tooth Fairy or the Easter Bunny. But the story with Jack Frost is very interesting. I also like this type of animation. It's a very different type of animation that Dreamworks has ever done before. My only issue is I do think the villain should have been seen as more of a threat. He was kind of a guy who just made bad dreams happen. And I wish that he was more of a threat to our main cast. But overall, the actual idea of this and seeing different versions, this is definitely a Santa you've never seen before, an Easter Bunny you've never seen before, and definitely a Jack Frost you haven't seen before. So I give a lot of credit to Dreamworks for putting this film together. Number 14 is The Prince of Egypt. Now, this is a film, I'll just give some personal backstory. I am Jewish, completely Jewish, and I went to Hebrew school every year until I was 11 years old. And in Hebrew school, from whatever it was, 3 or 4 to 11, we watched this film every single year. So probably most on this list, I've seen this film maybe more than any other film towards the top of this list. This is a film that I also just really enjoy. Beautiful animation telling a really authentic story of this thing in the Bible with Moses and Ramses. This is a story that I grew up on. We talk about Val Kilmer and Ray Fiennes having great chemistry, but also some great other supporting actors with Michelle Pfeiffer and Patrick Stewart and Helen Mirren, Steve Martin, Martin Short, Sandra Bullock, Jeff Goldblum, Danny Glover. I mean, the cast is stacked. And it's a beautiful film showing off the type of culture that I think a lot of us Jews respond to. And that's why in my Hebrew school, we did watch this every single year. It can be a quite powerful film, especially with the Moses and Ramses dynamic, which is so crucial to the story, is done very well. I do think at times the animation slightly has not held up all the way to now. And because it is a musical, I'm not the biggest musical person, even to this day, there's just no memorable songs, in my opinion, that I can remember. And I watch this film every year for 8 or 9 years. So I don't really remember the songs, but overall, I have a good time with The Prince of Egypt. I have a lot of nostalgia to my Hebrew school days, which are now almost 10 years ago. Number 13 is a film that I'm shocked not a lot of people enjoyed as much as I did, and that was Mr. Peabody and Sherman. This came out in 2014. I think people like this film, but I had an absolute blast in the theater, and this has a lot of rewatchability, in my opinion, when you're talking about Ty Burrell and Max Charles, who have great chemistry together, and they just explore history. A young boy and his dog, basically, who happen to have genius level IQ. The dog has genius level IQ, Mr. Peabody, who adopts this child, and their time machine is stolen, and moments in history begin to change. And they go through completely different parts of history. We get Stanley Tucci playing Leonardo da Vinci. We have so many different things going on, and there's a real heart to this father-son relationship. Of course, in real life, it's always, of course, a human being adopting a dog. And in this movie, it's a dog adopting a human being. And there's a lot of heart to this dynamic between Peabody and Sherman that really comes through. Beautiful animation. I love showing the history. I think a lot of kids will learn a lot of history if you watch this film. And the idea of Mr. Peabody being the smart genius, but also a flawed genius, instead of this perfect dog genius who knows what he's doing, he has a lot of flaws, not just being a dog and being a genius, but also a lot of flaws being a father. And I thought that this film really brings that out. So I really like Mr. Peabody and Sherman. I wish more people felt the same, but again, hopefully you guys do as well. Number 12, let's get into it. The How to Train Your Dragon franchise. Let's start number 12 with How to Train Your Dragon 2. Now, this is a franchise that everyone does hold up to be, and I agree, this is one of the best movie trilogies of all time. There is no denying that. I think I'm a little bit below. We'll talk about the first film and the third film in just a bit, but I do think the second one is the weakest film of the three, not by a lot. Again, beautiful animation, and getting, Hiccup's mom into the fray, voiced by Cate Blanchett, and the Cate Blanchett Craig Ferguson dynamic is one of the stronger aspects of the film. And my biggest issue with this whole franchise has really been a villain. My only issue, really, the whole franchise, is at times it does not feel like there's a legitimate threat that our heroes are facing, and you can tell. I could feel it, especially at the end of 3. Man, if this franchise had an iconic villain, it could be taken to a whole other level. I do think this film has the weakest villain of the franchise, and they feel very repetitive. And as you can tell, the animation is so much better than it was even 4 years prior to the first film coming out. I still have an absolute blast with How to Train Your Dragon 2, especially really the family, the big three of Hiccup, Valka, and Gobber, not Craig Ferguson, Gerard Butler, Stoic, but that's why this film works more than the other two. But other than that, I do think this is the least favorite film in the franchise. And let's go to number 11, which is How to Train Your Dragon 3, The Hidden World. I had an absolute blast again in the theater watching this. I had a fun experience. Saw this film about a month early with the Fandango experience. And I do think this is actually the strongest villain. Grimmel, played by F. Murray Abraham, who's now the voice of Kanju in Moon Knight. Beautiful animation, the relationship between Toothless and this other similar creature to Toothless was a fun relationship. I did find the actual hidden world element of the story to be kind of bland. And I do think the film had a hard time balancing if the hidden world and the Toothless romance storyline to be center's focus. And then Grimmel kind of comes in as well, saying that dragons just shouldn't be alive. I think they just should have stuck to one of the storylines, but still really great film. Definitely, again, a really great ending to such a fantastic trilogy of movies. Let's get into our top 10 Dreamworks. This is where it gets interesting, guys. Again, these two films are some people in their top 3. I know this film will be in people's top 5. It's at my number 10, and that is Shrek 2. Now, I do think that we talked about this on the bottom tier list. They have not really come close to any sequel comparing to Shrek 2. This is a film that I've always had my bottom, and then I keep rewatching it. I love the film even more. If you're just talking about this romance that kind of became out of nowhere at the end of the first film, really takes form because Fiona wants Shrek. They go to far, far away to meet Fiona's family, And that's where the kind of ensues. We get the debut of Puss in Boots, played by Antonio Banderas. Rupert Everett as Prince Charming does a fantastic job. And there's, again, really emotional things about Fiona and Shrek being together, and how that spawns into this family dynamic. It's probably more emotional of a story than the first film. I know some people actually prefer Shrek 2 over the first one. I have a blast of Shrek 2, one of the best animated sequels you can get out there. As I said, for me, it just isn't as memorable as the first one. I don't have as much nostalgia for 2 than 1, and that's why 1 is higher up on this list. To number 9, we go with another film that I believe is severely underrated. That is Flushed Away. I have a lot of nostalgia for Flushed Away. It came out when I was 4 years old. I've watched it from the day it really came out to now. The dynamic between Hugh Jackman and Kate Winslet is excellent in the film. Again, this type of animation you don't really see with DreamWorks films that often. I really enjoy the animation. I love the frog stuff with Jean Reno. I just have an absolute blast with this story, going from, Roddy is one of my favorite lead characters in a DreamWorks film, because he kind of has this overconfidence to himself in the early parts of the film. Then he gets sucked into this world, and he's basically just checked out, and Kate Winslet kind of brings him down to earth. And I do love that dynamic. I love all the side characters as well, with Ian McKellen playing the Toad, Andy Serkis and Bill Nye. So I have an absolute blast, always have, with Flushed Away. Number 8 on this list is Megamind, which I know for a lot of people, and I do see why. Again, these are the films in the top 10 that I love. Okay, this is just how I feel emotionally. I love Megamind, a film that DreamWorks, again, doesn't really do that often. A superhero type film with Will Ferrell being perfect as Megamind, being this ultra villain, and then obviously in the opening bits, finally getting what he wants, with Brad Pitt's Metro Man being, quoted dead. Obviously, you see the scene behind me; he's not dead. How in most films, villains do rely on the heroes to stay alive, to keep being their villain way. And Megamind just isn't a bad person it turned out to be. The Will Ferrell, Brad Pitt, Tina Fey, Jonah Hill, the 4 of them are absolutely fantastic and very memorable characters in the film. So excited that we're getting a sequel to Megamind. It's also a different type of superhero film that you just don't see a villain being the main character. Now, yes, we've seen it, including The Bad Guys, which just came out, that villains obviously go by, if villains lead in superhero in animated films, they go to hero. But this was a villain who was a villain, and because its hero died, didn't know what else to do. And I do feel that is a storyline that I would love to see done in a Marvel or DC type film. That's why this film is so unique. And this film is I know a lot of my friends think this is one of their favorite animated films of all time. I can't get it quite up there, but I do love Megamind. Number 7 is another film with a lot of nostalgia, Madagascar 2, Escape to Africa. I'm one of the people who do love this franchise. And this is, I think, the strongest and most emotional story in the entire franchise, with Alex and the group going basically to Alex's home and getting to see Alex's parents. And that relationship was really powerful in the film. Alex was kind of left to dust, and this aircraft and these New Yorkers going to Africa, and understanding, is this actually a better home for Alex and the gang? Staying here, you have the Moto jokes, which is very memorable in the film, but really it is Alex and his parents, especially his dad, finding his family and what is his true family. I found this to be the most emotional story in the Madagascar trilogy. I know 3 did take a big step back compared to the first 2, but I'm one of the people who do believe this might be the strongest story in the entire trilogy of Madagascar. Let's go to number 6, another film I love, love, love. That is Over the Hedge. I have so much nostalgia for Over the Hedge. It came out again when I was 4 years old. Love this film with Gary Shandling. so good in this film, as well as RJ played by Bruce Willis. I love RJ. And then one of my favorite characters in the entire DreamWorks catalog, which is Hammy, played by Steve Carell. You also have Stella, played by Wanda Sykes, all super memorable characters. The fact that if you want to watch food, this film does always make me hungry, because again, all the characters want to get food. And the way they talk about food is very early 2000s, which is something, again, I have a lot of nostalgia for. I love this type of animation. I love the batch of characters. Yes, there's standouts like Hammy in the film, but they really do feel like a cohesive unit. And RJ being strung along on this journey is one of my favorite storylines in DreamWorks. So I love Over the Hedge. I wish more people talked about this film being a top tier DreamWorks film. Let's get into number 5 on this list, the top 5 DreamWorks films, Shrek One. This is where it gets dicey, guys, because any of these, I know 4 of these 5 films for people, I know one of these films people probably don't think is a top 5 film. I do, because it's one of my favorites, but I love the first Shrek. This is a fantastic opening, really DreamWorks at the time. This film came out in 2001. It was really coming off of Ants and Chicken Run, and this film completely made DreamWorks one of the top animation studios out there. Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy are some of the best animation voice castings of all time. Talking about the music at the very end of the movie, Lord Farquaad, played by John Lithgow, is my favorite villain in the Shrek franchise. And this romance between him and Fiona, voiced by Cameron Diaz, is a really moving relationship. And how, judging a book by its cover, not judging a book by its cover with Shrek. He's an ogre, but he does mean more than that. And also the donkey dragon relationship. And there's so many memorable moments that if you grew up in this era like me, you know how many memorable things there are in Shrek. When you watch scenes, you get nostalgic. This is why it's my generation. My generation, you can tell, has a lot of nostalgia for the first Shrek. I mean, it's sad, as I said, that 3 and 4 really couldn't keep up the pace. We haven't had a Shrek. Shrek hasn't been in a film in over 10 years, but the first one is still one of the best animated films to ever come out. Number 4 is the first Madagascar. I have a bit more nostalgia for Madagascar than Shrek, because I do love the batch of characters here. Even more memorable characters. I love, if you talk about Ben Stiller and Chris Rock and Jada and Schwimmer. Schwimmer's really great, but everyone loves, of course, King Julian, played by Sacha Baron Cohen. And Maurice, played by Cedric the Entertainer. And of course, the introduction of the penguins as well is just really fun. The fact of these zoo animals in New York, going to Madagascar, beautiful animation. And are they actual predators, or are they just nice animals? And Alex, trying to get through that, yes, he's a lion and he's seen as this apex predator, but he's kind of more than that. And I mean, nothing beats King Julian in this franchise for me. Sacha Baron Cohen kills it. Memorable characters, memorable scenes. I like this franchise a lot, and I love the first Madagascar. Number 3 is How to Train Your Dragon 1. There's a reason why people believe that this is the best DreamWorks animated film and one of the best trilogies, not just animated, but just films of all time. Because the first one got off to such a hot start in 2010. I was 8 years old for the first How to Train Your Dragon. The Toothless Hiccup relationship is still one of the great animated or just movie relationships of all time. And again, to Jonah Hill, America Ferrara, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, T.J. Miller, Kristen Wiig, all in very memorable roles as well. Again, the only thing holding back is really the villain. No threat, really, in my opinion, in any of the 3 How to Train Your Dragon films, but such a memorable film that even though, yes, the animation got significantly better in 2 and 3, the first one still holds up, and the Hiccup and Toothless relationship is still very emotional and still very relatable for a lot of people. That's a number 3. Number 2, I know this people won't have it, but this is one of my favorite characters of all time. That is Wallace and Grumman, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Now, yes, this is British, a couple short films, but I grew up before I saw the film, watching Wallace and Gromit short film from the 90s, 80s, all these type of things. it's a weird thing to say, but the reason why I actually started eating cheese is because that is one of the foods that Wallace likes the most is cheese. And the way he said cheese, I would say cheese as a kid. And then getting to see a feature-length film of these two characters that mean so much to my childhood. I love stop motion animation, and the reason why is it all started back to Wallace and Grumman, just iconic characters to me. Also adding in Ray Fiennes as the villain was really good. The animation still holds up. The story really holds up about Wallace getting turned into the were-rabbit, the mystery of the were-rabbit. And Helena Bonham Carter, as well as a really funny love interest for Wallace. So I heard that Netflix is going to be making another Wallace and Gromit feature film in 2024. You can get my ticket right away because I love these characters. These characters mean a lot to my childhood, as does this film. But for me, coming in first place is the first Kung Fu Panda. Very iconic film to me. It has, in my opinion, the best villain. I'm a big villain person. My favorite villain in the entire franchise, with Tai Lung, who's voiced by Ian McShane. But still, if you're talking about underdog stories and movies, I always think of Poe in this film. Someone who should have not been there, just wanted to download dumplings, but always had dreams of being one of the warriors with, Dustin Hoffman, Shifu, and Angelina Jolie as Tigress, and Jackie Chan, and Lucy Liu, and Seth Rogen, and David Cross. As a kid growing up, I would always debate with friends which member of the Furious Five would you be, which has always been a fun conversation. But it's always been for me the Poe and Shifu relationship. Tigress is probably my favorite character of the five. It is the Poe and Shifu relationship, and how Shifu again is a flawed master as one of his own basically sons, his own son basically turning on them. The escape scene from Tai Lung is so memorable. So I love the first Kung Fu Panda film. And even though, yes, I think 2 and 3 are my bottom 15, this film for me means so much to me. It came out when I was 6 years old. I've never stopped watching it, never will, because I love, love, love Kung Fu Panda 1. So that's my ranking of the DreamWorks films. I've done my bottom 15 and now my top 15. So that's my thoughts on DreamWorks. Let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on my ranking. Please like the video, subscribe, ring the bell, do all those things, and I'll see you guys very soon.